It's time for Preserving Your Dignity and Your Money, Planning for Successful Aging with Nugen Law. And now your host, J. Bryan Nugen, estate planning and elder law attorney.
Good morning, and welcome to Preserving Your Dignity and Your Money, Planning for Successful Aging with Nugen Law. I'm J. Bryan Nugen, founder of Nugen Law, and your host for our program. The purpose of our show is to have weekly, in-depth conversations about matters relevant to folks as they walk down the path of successful aging. Our listeners will learn what it is to age with dignity and how best to protect their money. I've been practicing law for 3 decades. I'm licensed to practice in Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, and Florida, and actively represent clients in all 4 states. My practice, the attorneys, and our interdisciplinary team of professionals who practice with me concentrate on working with clients in estate planning and elder law and areas related to them, such as protecting money from nursing home stays, securing benefits from programs like Medicaid and VA Veterans Administration, geriatric care coordination, estate and trust administration, guardianships, and planning for those with special needs. Nugen Law sees clients in many stages of life, but commonly we have folks reaching out when they or a loved one are showing signs of needing help. Those signs may include a chronic ailment or progressive decline, before, during, or after a hospitalization, an instance of incapacity, caregiver burnout, stress on family members due to some or all of those instances I've mentioned. As a reminder, if you hear something in today's broadcast which resonates with you, an area in which we may be able to help, please call Nugen Law 260-925-3738, 260-925-3738. Speak with one of our intake specialists and schedule a meeting for either our Fort Wayne office or our Auburn office. You're also encouraged to see us online at www.nugenlaw.com. Today, I have a passion project of mine to talk about, stemming from my practice as an elder law attorney, but not directly related to the law. As an elder law attorney, I am frequently learning about clients who, in order to remain in their home, need a little bit of extra help. So years ago, back in 2010, 2011, something like that, I had a client who was experiencing increasing physical limitations. She was trying to find people to come into her home to provide care for her. She was finding private caregivers in the community. Unfortunately, the caregivers she found were taking advantage of her financially, had been found drinking on the job, etc. Not a good experience. Her physical limitations and lack of adequate care resulted in her being admitted to a nursing home for rehabilitation, and after that was finished, she needed to remain in the nursing home as she had no one to take care of her. She had a child, but the child lived out of state. So my client reached out to me, desperate to return home. Frankly, it broke my heart. Another example is a husband and wife. The wife had dementia, resulting in her sleeping during the day and pacing all night long. The husband was trying to take care of his beloved wife. Unfortunately, he was not sleeping due to the demands of caring for this wife. The husband was literally falling asleep while standing, collapsing, and injuring himself. Another instance of my feeling desperate to help my clients. So I realized there was a real need for quality, vetted care providers. It was then, in 2011, I formed a company named TrueCare. TrueCare is a state of Indiana Department of Health licensed personal service agency. The agency was formed to provide non-medical care for folks like I just mentioned. So back in 2011, I thought I would have a small workforce of able-bodied, appropriate care providers for a few seniors needing help to stay in their own homes. I was naive. TrueCare has provided care for hundreds of clients over these past 13 years. Not only that, but we have opened 2 care homes located in Auburn for residents with some level of a dementia to live and receive 24/7 care from TrueCare staff members. Today, I have in the studio the administrator of TrueCare, the very capable, talented, and dedicated Mrs. Patty McGill. Thank you, Patty, for being here. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Bryan. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Before we get too deep into what TrueCare Seniors and TrueCare Homes is about, Patty, please let the listeners know about your professional background.
So right out of high school, went to work at a hospital. I worked in a hospital for about 30 years, 2 different hospitals. I left there, moved to Indiana, and had a bed and breakfast. So I applied for a job when I decided that bed and breakfast wasn't my thing. And I got a job in an assisted living community. And I was hired because the executive director there liked the fact that I cooked breakfast so that if a chef didn't show up, I would do breakfast. And
that was the hook.
It started.
That was the hook.
I know, right? So I never did have to do breakfast. But I ended up getting into assisted living. I became a residential care facility administrator, both in the states of Nevada and Indiana. And then I made my way back here, did some assisted living, had enough of it, so I joined True Care as their manager and administrator. So I do have a lot of experience with assisted living and assisting older people in their ADLs, their daily activities of living.
All right. So you've used that acronym ADL. Can you give our listeners an example of what an ADL is or what they are?
So an ADL is an activity of daily living. So that would be getting dressed, getting up, reminding them to take their medication, sometimes making breakfast for them. Sometimes people need help just tying their shoes. It could be any number of activities that somebody has to maintain to leave the house or to have company.
So it could also include using the restroom?
Absolutely.
Bathing?
Yes.
Yeah. Meal preparation, cleaning the home. So those activities of daily living, that's really the assistance that folks need help with to be able to remain as independent as possible, considering their circumstance.
Yes, and the showering is a major, major component because falls in a bathroom can be deadly. That is the most dangerous place to have a fall. So we have ways of allowing them their privacy while assisting them to take a shower. When I do an initial assessment on someone, I check the shower, the bathroom, to make sure that they have things like grab bars, that they have a shower seat if needed, that they're not climbing over a big tub. They have the handheld shower head so that they're not, if they have a chair, they're not moving around too much. So that's a very important part of ADLs is the shower. The shower, getting dressed, getting fed, getting your meds. Sure.
Well, with seniors, we commonly see infections that happen as a result of not bathing. Urinary tract infections, UTI, are very common with seniors. And frankly, the act of bathing oneself is quite a workout. You are vulnerable, right? The floor can be slippery. You're bending and twisting and making motions that you wouldn't normally make during the course of the day. It can be a challenge for folks to just keep themselves appropriately cleaned. So that little bit of oversight is huge. I know that I've had exposure to clients that weren't bathing like they should be bathing because it was a lot of effort for them, and they were afraid. So to your point about falls in the shower and falls in the restroom, with a little bit of assistance there, hopefully we can skirt that, avoid that situation, keep them safe.
Absolutely. And, those that insist on taking the shower on their own, and we have them, if they'll just let us be in the home while they're taking a shower, right, and get their towel for them so they're not reaching and bending, getting out of the shower, that too, I'll settle for that.
Sure.
If they won't allow us to help them take the shower. But there's more to it than the shower. It's getting them good and dry so that they don't get rashes and fungus. It's putting lotion on their dry skin because their skin is so fragile. It's so delicate. So the lotion is a good thing. Even the motion of just rubbing the ankles and the feet and the legs with lotion increases circulation, and it makes people feel good.
Sure it does, yeah. It's just, and I think the key is, too, when you're assisting folks with those activities of daily living, TrueCare staff is doing that you're showing respect to your clients and you're treating them with dignity and making sure that they feel independent in their home. And to your earlier point, Patty, some folks are shy. They don't want someone in the restroom with them. But if we could at least be in the home, we're respecting their dignity and being as attentive as we can be, considering the limitations that the client is putting on your caregivers. But so Patty, why did you make the change from a traditional institutional setting, the assisted living facilities you were talking about, for caring for seniors as they age, to TrueCare? Why? What was the motivator?
Well, so senior living, assisted living, number one, it's very costly. Number two, not everybody is ready for assisted living. Mm-hmm. They say that, the home is the number one competitor for a senior living community because everybody wants to stay home. So yesterday in the U.S. News and World Report, they reported 77% of people in 2021. Well, it's 2024 right now. I would say it's more like 90 to 95% of seniors want to stay in their home, but most of them don't think it's feasible.
So that transition from traditional assisted living world to working with TrueCare and providing, arranging to provide care for clients in their personal home was motivated by what you saw, your residents, and maybe their motivation to remain at home as long as is possible.
Absolutely. And so just as your passion when you started TrueCare, Bryan, my passion is helping seniors. So those that don't want to leave their home, assisted living may not be the place for them at the time. It might be the place they want to be later in life, sure. But, not everybody wants to be there in their 60s. They think right. That's more for a 90-year-old,
yep.
Right? So home is where they're comfortable. That's where they want to stay. So a company like TrueCare, a personal service agency, we can go into the home and assist them so that they can stay in their home longer. We have clients that we stay with all day while the family member is working. That's a great option for that family. Also, it's a lot of work taking care of a family member. And I know I've said this before, it changes the dynamic of the family. When the adult child now has become the parent of their parent, the dynamic changes. And a lot of times the parent gets resentful because they're not making all of the decisions. So that's when the adult child has to step in and say, Mom, and we're going to say Dad today because we always talk about Mom, right?
Yep.
But dads need help too.
Of course.
Dads need help.
Yeah. Well, and I want to go back for just a minute. There is a time and a place for everyone in the spectrum of how you receive care as you age. I don't think that you're saying, and I definitely am not saying, that assisted living facilities don't have their time and place. Of course they do.
Sure,
and I
absolutely.
think there are excellent ALFs in our community, and I have clients in probably every ALF in town. But I think the goal is if you can remain at home for a longer period of time before making that transition to an ALF, TrueCare is able to assist them to remain home. I found that just a few hours of care a day can make a huge difference, and maybe not even necessarily every day of the week. If you had somebody 4 hours a day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it'll make sure that you're up, we have food in the home, properly bathed 2 or 3 days a week, that we see that you're doing well and have our eyes on the home. And if there is a concern, you're able to bring it to the client's attention or the family member's attention so that it can be addressed. But there's nothing wrong with assisted living facilities. They provide an integral part of the system that's in place to provide care for seniors as they age. But to your point earlier, Patty, I think most people, if they have the option of staying home, it makes sense for them physically, cognitively, safety-wise, they would want to be home. I think that's normal.
And being home, a lot of times, too, there's a social component of the personal service agency. When you have somebody in their home and the family doesn't live there and they don't have the time to come have daily visits or even weekly visits sometimes, our caregivers can be the only person that they see for a week. So there's a lot of social component mixed in there, too. So aside from doing the ADLs and, the IADLs, which is the housekeeping and the home care, there is a personal a companionship that we provide, which sometimes is the bigger value because they at least see somebody, they get to know them, they trust them, they become a part of the family as well.
Sure. Very, if I could interject, if anybody is interested in speaking with Patty or meeting someone from True Care, their phone number is 260-333-6440. That's 260-333-6440 to reach out to Patty and the other team members at True Care. So Patty, when you hear the phrase aging in place, what does that mean to you? How do we assist True Care clients with that aging in place?
So aging in place is aging in the place where you are comfortable, the place that feels like home. So if that's your home of 50 years, if it's your home of 2 years, it's still where you want to be. That's where your memories are. That's where all of your belongings are. So instead of having to move to a whole new environment, which sometimes causes difficulties in the aging process, it's very confusing. It's very traumatic. So if they can age in place in their homes and have some assistance, some help, they do better. They're comfortable. They're where they want to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. All right. So aging in place is a catchphrase I read about frequently, and it kind of encapsulates when we're providing care for folks in their home. But when you've mentioned about where they are, True Care can provide assistance for someone in a brick and mortar home, in an apartment, at an independent living facility, at an assisted living facility. We've provided care for clients in nursing homes. So it's where they are, True Care can meet them there.
Absolutely. And that is another one of our catchphrases, right? Meet them where they are. So as they're aging in place, and they might only need 1 or 2 hours a week, and then you start noticing Dad is, he's not taking his showers, so we need to increase that to 3 hours a week so that we at least get him a shower a week, maybe twice a week. And then, down the road, as he requires more care, we're going to communicate with that with the family, let them know that Dad is needing more care, and increase to provide him more care, more safety, more social interaction, and assist him more with his ADLs.
Excellent. So when you receive inquiries from interested parties, so I just gave you our phone number, somebody calls into the office and says, hey, I'd like to speak with you, Patty, about mom, dad, aunt, uncle, husband, wife, brother, sister. They're seeking help from True Care. You said that many people will say, I've heard this before, and I've heard you say this to me in the past, I need a nurse. Right? I need a nurse to come to the home and help. What's the difference between home personal care, home health care, and how does True Care fit into those categories?
So home health care provides skilled care. So that would be a nurse, a CNA, a physical therapist, occupational therapist, wound care. So with home care, we take over after they've done their skilled care. So although they might come in for 1 or 2 hours a week, they don't do the assistance with ADLs. They don't do the housekeeping services.
They're not toileting. They're not preparing a meal. They're not bathing them. They're not dressing them.
No, they're
not
maybe
combing their hair.
A shower and maybe changing their bed linens.
Sure.
Right? So they're very limited. And they're limited by their payers, right? By Medicare does not allow the home care part in home health.
Right. So the attendants that are coming out aren't nurses, frankly,
No.
to provide payment for
No.
a nurse that's going to be sitting with you and playing euchre or preparing a meal or getting you dressed in the morning. It's cost prohibitive.
Yes, it is.
But home health and personal service agencies like TrueCare, they work well together. I mean, they're part of that whole care team.
Absolutely. And we're a great team with them. So, we try to stagger our days when we know we're going into a home that has home health or even hospice so that someone's in the house every day. So that's a great way to be partners. And, we get to where, we communicate with each other, let them know, if I've noticed some changes, they'll let me know if they've seen some changes. That way there's better continuity of care.
Mm. So would a person either be using exclusively that home personal care, that an agency like TrueCare, or home health care? How does a person know when they need either one or both? What are the indicators for that?
So first of all, if it's for home health care, their doctor usually makes a referral, and they have to have an order for that. For home care, for a personal service agency, there's no physician's order required. In fact, we get referrals from doctors' offices because they realize they have someone that needs some assistance. So they don't send us an order. They just call me and say, hey, can you help us out? And, go take meet with this lady. So, the difference is when the home health care is done, the personal service agency is where the value comes in.
Sure.
In home.
Sure. So you referenced doctors' offices reaching out and making a referral. What other sources have you heard from saying, aside from just strictly family members saying, oh, we identify that this person needs some help, would you be able to help TrueCare and come in and send some attendance here?
So some other sources are some case managers and social workers that work for example, the VA, the Medicaid offices, aging and in-home services. I get calls from physicians' offices. I get calls from neighbors saying, I have a neighbor that needs some help.
Sure.
What should I do? So, I develop a little plan with them to get that person to reach out or at least let me come over and talk with them.
Hospitals, you've received referrals.
Hospitals, we get referrals from social workers at hospitals. I've had nurses from the ERs call and ask if we could help out. We love those kind of referrals.
Of course.
So, but yeah, anybody can refer to us.
And I think sometimes people don't recognize the condition that they're in. It's other people looking from the outside looking in saying, gosh, you have not maintained yourself the way that you have in the past. It seems to me that you're losing weight. I'm seeing that you're losing weight, and maybe you're not eating as regularly as you have been in the past. It takes a lot to prepare a meal. It takes
Absolutely.
Especially for one, if you're a single person. That's a challenge.
Right. And one of the things that I didn't mean to interrupt.
Not at all.
One of the things that I find is that when older people start losing weight or they know that their memory is slipping, a lot of times they will isolate themselves from the family and the friends because they know that there's some changes, but they don't want anyone else to know there's changes.
They don't want to admit it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is a very dangerous situation, right? You have somebody who is they're competent enough to know that something is wrong.
Right.
And then they isolate. So that is when it's really important to make that call.
I think the fear is if they reach out and ask for that help, that someone is going to say, you no longer may be independent. We're going to move you to a nursing home. We're going to move you to a memory care unit. And quite the opposite, actually. If they get the help, that's how they get to age in place.
Right.
They get to stay
Absolutely.
home a little bit. And it is not always 24/7 care. Not that you couldn't do 24/7 care, but that isn't what it's always about. we're meeting them where they are and making sure that we can provide enough care so that they can have as great of independence as they're able based upon their needs at that time. I've mentioned a few times, but Patty, if somebody cares to reach out to you, they can do that at 260-333-6440. So after an interested person reaches out to you for help, what's the process for them to become a client of TrueCare? What assessments are performed?
So the process is I would go to their home, meet with the client and, a family member or a friend, anybody else that the client wants involved. I do an assessment of the home. So I look for safety things like extension cords, rugs. A stack of newspaper on the floor is deadly. It's like stepping on a sheet of ice. Any of those trip and fall hazards. I look in the bathroom, look for grab bars, rugs, anything that's unsafe in the bathroom. Even a toilet that's too low sometimes is a safety problem.
Sure.
So I make my recommendations with that. I do my assessment. So I assess their physical and their home needs. And then I work out a care plan with that client or the family member, and then we get to work.
How do you implement that care plan once you've established it?
So the care plan, so of course everything is computerized. We have an app. So our care staff are not only introduced to their client, but they have all of the information on the app. So they know when they go into someone's home that they're going to be assisting with the shower, reminding them to take their medications, getting them dressed, changing the bedding, perhaps making a meal for the day.
Mm-hmm. So if a client, before I ask that question, so TrueCare verifies that the care provider is there. They're clocking in and out using the client's phone. The client's phone, yes. And there's software that's utilized to confirm that they are there.
Yes.
That the tasks that were established for them, they have to positively indicate that they've completed those tasks. Yes. There's electronic verification of services that were provided. So all of that, that's how we track that they were there and the services that were performed appropriately. And we also have staff.
Yes,
TrueCare has staff that drops in randomly, unannounced, and checks in on everybody.
And that's been a great program. And even when I tell other people that's what they're doing, they're like, wow. So, we have a field support staff that actually goes into the homes unannounced when the caregiver is at that home to make sure that, things are getting done, that the home is actually clean, the client's well taken care of. Of course, we want our staff in their uniform with their name tags on. But yes, it's been great.
So we're starting to get a little close on time, but I wanted to talk about something I mentioned earlier. That's the care homes. So if a client is no longer able to remain in their own home and they need more extended care, 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day, 24-hour-a-day care, you have an alternative for them, TrueCare Homes. Our TrueCare Homes, talk to us briefly in the minute or two we have left about what those are.
So we have 2 homes in Auburn. They both have the capacity for 4 residents. They're both 4-bedroom, 2-bath homes that are equipped for handicap accessibility. It's like living in their own home, except it is not their home, obviously. We do all the cooking, the cleaning. We do some activities with them. We assist them with their showers, remind them to take their meds. We have some social functions there. They're allowed to come and go with their family as they choose. The family is allowed to visit at any time. That is a private pay, and that is something that long-term care insurance does pay for. So a lot of times people don't realize that their long-term care insurance will pay for it, but it does.
Thank you, Patty. Our time's running short. So if our listeners would like to find out about TrueCare, please give us a call, 260-333-6440. As a reminder, Nugen Law represents clients in Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, and Florida. Please give us a call at 260-925-3738 to see us at one of our offices, either in Fort Wayne or in Auburn, or you may send us an email at help@nugenlaw.com. That's HELP@NUGENLAW.com. Thank you for listening to Preserving Your Dignity and Your Money, Planning for Successful Aging with Nugen Law. Patty, thank you for being on today and explaining about True Care. I appreciate our listeners indulging me to talk about my passion project, True Care, very much. I look forward to speaking with our listeners next weekend, Saturday at 9 a.m. here on WOWO. Enjoy your weekend.
You've been listening to Preserving Your Dignity and Your Money, Planning for Successful Aging with Nugen Law. For more information, log on to NugenLaw.com or email help@NugenLaw.com. Nothing stated in today's program should be considered as legal advice, should not be considered as having created an attorney-client relationship between show host and guests and any listener. Nugen Law is not liable for anything that happens as a result of a listener relying on provided information as legal advice. The content is for informational purposes only.